Hi, welcome to Gamers Chess Club online chess lessons. My name is Jason and this is the 11th lesson in the Introduction to Chess series. Gamers Chess Club is a recreational chess club out of Conroe, Texas, focused on introducing chess to families in a fun and friendly environment. For more information, you can email us at gamerschesskclub@gmail.com or visit the Facebook page at www.facebook.com/gamerschessclub. Today's learning objectives, we're going to learn some tips about the opening phase of a chess game. So today we're going to learn 5 tips for opening a chess game. These are the first several moves that you make in the game while you're developing your pieces. But before we get into the tips, the one thing I want you to walk away from this lesson is to focus on the center. Okay, so these 4 squares here, this is where we want to focus. This is where we want to try to get all of our pieces either attacking or occupying. Okay. All right, so why the center? Why are these important? Well, this is where our pieces work best. So the mobility of the pieces is the answer. So here's an example with a knight. The white knight has 8 options, while the black knight, who's over here in the corner, only has 3 options. And if the black knight were in, let's say, h8, he would only have 2 options. Okay, so getting your pieces in the center gives them the most number of squares that they can attack, and gives them the best mobility. Okay, and tonight we see the same thing with the bishop. The black bishop here has 12 options, while the white bishop has 7 options. The white one is down here, the black one is in the center. So you give your pieces the best options by getting them towards the center of the board. And even the pawns are good in the center. It's good to move your center pawns because not only do they open up diagonals for your bishops, but they help support pieces that need to be in the center. Okay, so now we're going to get into our tips. The first tip, obvious from what we've been talking about, is occupy and attack the center. So in this scenario, who do you think is doing a better job with this rule, white or black? So obviously white is doing much better. Black has made a lot of pawn moves. Looks like all his pieces are down here. He doesn't seem to be too interested in these center squares, although these pieces are attacking one of the center squares. That's not too bad, but these pieces are not really doing anything for him right now. So white is doing a much better job. He's got 2 pawns occupying center squares. He's got the bishops attacking center squares, and he's got the knights attacking center squares here and here, and this knight is attacking here and here. So white is doing a much better job. Okay, so tip number 2 is to make as few pawn moves as possible. So who's doing a better job with this tip, white or black? Okay, so we see, similar to what we saw in the last one, white is doing better here. White has moved just 2 pawns, the center pawns. He's moved just enough to try to get his pieces out. Okay, and black has made a lot of pawn moves. He's still got a lot of his pieces out here on the back row. Notice the back row for white. He's already started to develop his pieces. Okay, tip number 3 says to move each piece only once. And the reason for this is we're trying to race to the center. We're trying to get all of our pieces in the center before our opponent. And so we don't want to waste time moving our pieces more than once. Now, this isn't a hard and fast rule. Sometimes you have to avoid an attack or to address a situation. But in general, if you can avoid it, try to only move your pieces once until you get all your pieces out and developed. Okay, so can you tell which player didn't follow this tip, white or black? So you can tell here, but because of the position of the knight, that the knight had to move twice, at least twice. And given the rest of the board and how the pieces are, you know that's probably what happened. He probably moved his pawn out. Black responded with a pawn move. White made a pawn move. His knight moved here from b1 to c3 or a3. Black responded by moving his knight out, and then white didn't follow the tip and decided to move his knight again. Okay, tip number 4 is to develop all of your pieces. So you want to try to get all your pieces off the back row. The only ones you're okay with leaving on the back row are the rooks and the king. You want all the other pieces out. So who's doing a better job with this, white or black? In this situation, the black player is doing a much better job in the opening. Not only is he occupying the center, he's developed every one of his pieces, and he's got his rooks connected, he's got his king castled. He's doing a great job. Okay, and the last tip we'll learn today is to castle early. So castling, we know, protects our king. It gets it over into the corner behind some pawns, gets the rooks connected and working with each other. And so you want to try to castle as soon as possible, as soon as it's safe to do so. You don't want to get caught with your king out in the middle of the board. And so if you're, and the flip side of that is you want to try to keep your opponent from being able to castle if you can help it. So castle early so you don't get stuck in the middle. So right in this situation, for instance, white has the opportunity to castle. Not necessarily the best move, but as soon as it's safe to do so, white should castle. Okay, black is to move in this scenario. I want you to choose the best move in light of the tips we just learned. So the first option, I want you to pick A, B, or C. The first option is bishop to C5. That's this bishop moving over here to C5. The next one is knight. It's knight to B4. So moving the knight to B4. And then, rook to G8. So moving the rook here to G8. Okay. All right. So of those options, pause the video, take some time to think about it. Think about why those might, what might be a good move and why. So the answer is bishop to C5 would be the best move in light of what we've learned of those three options. Knight B4 breaks one of the rules, or one of our tips we learned is we're still trying to develop our pieces, get them off the back rank. Moving this knight would kind of break that tip of don't move your pieces more than once if you can help it, okay? And the rook really doesn't do anything for us yet. This is not an open file, so there's no real reason to move the rook to G8. And the bishop, what it does to us is it helps us in our goal of developing all of our pieces, and it also moves a piece to attack a center square. Okay, it's white's turn to move in this scenario, and I want you to choose the best move in light of our opening tips. So our options are B3, that's moving this pawn up to B3. Another option is knight to A3, so this knight over here to A3, or knight to C3, this knight to C3. Okay, so let's talk through each one of those. B3, one of our tips was not to make unnecessary pawn moves. This may or may not be a necessary pawn move, but right now there's more important things to do. It would be nice to have some support for the bishop here, but right now we've got better things to do than to move a pawn. So it also doesn't really contribute to the center game or things like that. So moving the pawn to B3 is probably not our best option. Knight to A3, there's a rhyme. Knight on the rim, outlook is dim. We don't want to move our knight to the side. We want to keep our pieces towards the center, develop them towards the center if we can. There's no reason here to move a knight to A3. It's great that we're developing our pieces, but we need to develop them in the right direction. So the answer is knight to C3. Okay, in this scenario, it's white to move. And again, we want to pick the best move given the three examples that we have. So as with all the prior slides, we're really just picking the best of the options given to us. We're not necessarily picking the best move on the board. There's a lot of good openings, a lot of good first moves. But right now, of the three that I'm going to talk to you about, tell me which one would be the best given the things we've learned today. So knight to H3, that's moving this knight here. We're developing a piece off of the back. Or B4, that's moving this pawn all the way up here to B4, or E4, moving this pawn all the way up to the center. Okay, so the answer is E4. Not only is E4 one of the most common first moves in chess, it is the most common, or one of the most common, because it's effective. We're not only opening a space for the bishop so that we can continue developing our pieces, but we're also occupying a center square. and attacking another center square. So e4 is the best move. Moving a knight to the side here doesn't do anything for us as a first move, would not be a good idea. Moving b4, unless you have a particular strategy in mind, there's not really any reason to do this. It's not contributing anything to our middle, and there's not really any good reason to do that. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Remember the 5 key things we learned in the opening today. These are not all the things you need to learn in the opening. I picked a few that were important for a beginner series. We'll learn more about openings in future lessons, but for now, remember the 5 things. Occupy and attack the center with your pieces, number 1. Number 2, make as few pawn moves as possible. Number 3, only move your pieces once if you can help it. Number 4, develop all of your pieces. And number 5, castle early. All right, see you next time.